Okay, I think we're live. We're going to refresh my page real quick and just double check. I don't know if it's live on YouTube yet, is it?
Yeah.
It is?
It's live.
All right, cool. Not shown on my screen. That's all good. I'm Jareth Garza, owner, creator, co-founder, all the above. Technically, Eric and Paul are my partners in crime. They've helped me build the Locksmith Academy. And I'm starting this podcast as something kind of new, an experimental kind of thing. And I'm excited today because we have a lot to talk about. I don't really care too much about formality, but we will try to keep it, going, in a linear fashion. And I'll try not to jump off subject too much. But let's go ahead and introduce ourselves real quick. I'm Jareth Garza. This is Eric Duttweiler. Tell us a little something about yourself.
Live in Virginia, locksmith for a few years, and right-hand man, Jareth Garza.
I'm Paul Van Nebel. I've probably been a locksmith for almost 10 years in Manhattan, Kansas.
Partner in crime to me as well.
Name's Chris Huffstetler. I own River City Locksmith out of Spokane, Washington, and also the owner of Lockjaw Manufacturing. Been at it for about 10 years now. And I got roped in with these three guys, and seemed like a good fit, so we all kind of talk. It worked out well.
Chris Huffstetler is also my concubine. He does that in his spare time for me. Real generous offer, and I accepted. He's a good guy. So real quick, I want to talk about UHS classes that we have coming up. Me, Eric, and Paul, the three horsemen, are going to be attending UHS's training program in Fort Lauderdale / Miami, Florida. It is going to be beginner automotive, the 21st through the 22nd. What are we going to talk about?
Well, the first day we're going to be doing leashy training for beginner automotive. And Jareth and I spent a day and a half over at a pick and pull, pulling, 120 door locks to practice with. And we already taught a smaller leashy class in Kansas City for the Missouri-Kansas Locksmiths Association, and that one was a hit.
I thought it went pretty well, too. I've permanently scarred my hand digging out a couple of ECUs for Paul. And I might go ahead.
They make tools for that. You don't have to use your bare hands anymore. Jesus, what happened to your hand?
It was a bracket. 2000 Avalon is what got me. So, yeah, there's that. While me and Paul were out picking locks, we learned a couple of cool things. What vehicles have a door lock that is secured with only one screw?
The Ford Focus.
Ford Fiesta.
Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, the AG one was.
Uh-huh. What else? Chevy Cruze. We had a whole bunch of Hyundai, whole bunch of Mazda, whole bunch of Toyota. And it was really interesting to go through a pick and pull with no rules, and with vehicles that had been in accidents. Paul recorded me trying to remove a door lock out of a Mazda, and it had a completely crumpled door. Typically it would take like 10 seconds to remove the door lock, but in this particular instance, it was impossible. So it was a really fun event. And we pulled a Tibby lock out of a Jaguar. What did I have to do to get that out?
I don't think you had to smash that window, but you did.
I got impatient and was hot. So, there's no rules out at like the LKQ. I made sure to look both ways, and coast was clear. So it was pretty good. So the first day of our beginners automotive class, we're going to try to focus not primarily, but mostly on leashy and how to pick a lock, how locks work, and how systems and their rules are important when it comes to using a tool and determining how to cut the key. So day one is going to be chock full of information and a lot of hands-on. It'll be an 8-hour class with 2 15-minute breaks and also a lunch. After beginners automotive, well, let's talk about day two. day one, we're going to do leashy, hands-on, stuff like that. We have over 120 locks, I believe. How much money did you spend on the materials for our class?
I told you I wasn't going to tell you, but
It's worth talking about.
a little over. Well, I guess the ECUs don't count. Total bill was probably around 1,100, 1,150.
One thing that gets me a lot of times is we're independent contractors, essentially. We don't have a lot of money when it comes to bringing our own stuff. You'll see educators who technically don't prepare much of their own information, where a corporate entity like, an umbrella company has the time, the money to put a class together for somebody. It's almost a template cookie cutter kind of deal. But the Locksmith Academy actually invested blood, sweat, tears, and money to make our class better. We even have to ship these to Fort Lauderdale also. So that's just something I kind of wanted to talk about. Hopefully we have more money in the future, better sponsors, and we won't have to do that. But we make sure that whenever, there is a gap to fill, we do fill the gap. Additionally, after day one of our leashy, we are going to do programming, and we're primarily going to focus on jobs that don't involve EEPROM. They're going to be teaching an advanced class kind of in conjunction or concurrently with ours. So we don't want to cross over too much. What would be the number one tool you guys would recommend to the new locksmith, the new automotive locksmith who wanted to make car keys and make money doing it easily?
100.
One tool.
Pretty good tool.
KM100.
KM100. Chris, do you have a KM100?
I do not. This is a great example because I'm not a full-fledged automotive guy. I do some car keys, but it's definitely like less than 15% of my business annually. So you do need multiple devices, and that's just a given. But the more devices that do more means you have less to try and cover. Obviously, I'm not doing Porsche. I'm not pulling FEM units or anything right now, but I started with a CK100, moved up to an SBB, up to an Auto Pro pad with I got Autech. I've heard some wonderful things about that K, and it does more than just program. I know that. That's what's important if you want to be more versatile.
I actually don't have the KM100 myself, but I do know it's pretty good. I would also recommend to the Auto Pro Pad Basic as a kind of a beginner. That would give you a lot of coverage. That's really good. That I do have firsthand experience with because I do own one.
All right, I'm going to cut in real quick. That's me messaging Eric. We are running a new program right now. We're still working out the kinks. And every once in a while, I get some feedback where it sounds like Chris Stetler was talking to me through a drive-through order speaker. So just real quick, I wanted to clear that up. And if you see one of us disappear, just hang on because we will pop back up. We are still working out the issues.
Eventually, we're going to get Jareth a good camera laptop.
Yeah.
Not his third phone.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I'm currently I'm streaming on a phone, and if you look, I've got a laptop over here that I'm watching with. So I have a very thrown together setup.
Balling on a budget, man. You do what you got to do.
It is what it is, right?
Yes, sir. Whatever works.
I had a commenter mention something about AutoSmart. AutoSmart's helped me out a lot in regards to I've got a window open and now I've got moths flying around. But AutoSmart is another good aid for a brand new locksmith. One of the biggest problems in our industry is people who lack education and the ability to do research. And the more you can help yourself, the better.
I have AutoSmart books, and they did there's information there that wasn't really accurate. There was a couple systems where it was I think there's a couple Honda systems that said like dealer keys only, or there are things that weren't. And there's also 2010 books, so they weren't very modern. But I think that they also have an Auto Smart app, right?
Yes.
And I
The
heard
PDF is really good too.
When I was preparing for last class in Florida, I was working on primarily Honda. And I was going through my 2016 AutoSmart book to see which ones are integrated and which ones aren't. And it was all wrong.
I mean, the information is good for spaces and cut depths, but I think one of the most important things I could have probably gotten in the first year was probably a good subscription to Blackhawk or a key code, not key code, that's horrible, but the Instacode, because that stuff really, because you can get cuts and think you're good, and you get to ignition, like, oh crap, I messed up, so something was wrong, I read wrong. And you guys know that some cars don't read as well as other vehicles do. And I'm looking at you, GM. I fucking hate you so much, GM, with your, I hate GM, but some vehicles don't read very easily, and be able to verify biddings are super important, more than programming, I'd say.
We mentioned this in our class, me and Paul. We had a student who wasn't really good at, well, I'll say wasn't very confident. I had a cigar shit on me. There we go. We had a student who wasn't very confident with HU 101. And me and Paul picked, I think, probably 4 or 5 Chevy Cruze door locks. You know, 1 screw, 1 lock. It makes sense. Additionally, as you mentioned, HU 100 is it's a sloppy Joe of a lock.
Well, I'm talking about B106. I'm talking about warded keyways. I'm talking about the older ones. The newer stuff's not something I even deal with a whole lot of. The older GMs is what I struggled with the most still.
I've never had a problem with those, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe you need
They
to
read horribly for me.
I'm
I should probably
kidding.
take a class.
I'm kidding.
Call Locksmith.
Have you tried hiring somebody who knows how to do it? All
All I
right.
like to do is just overprice the job and then not show up. It works out. It's a pretty good system for me so far. I just,
Until somebody accepts your, your FU, quote, and then you're stuck with it. But
most
here's
Silverados, no problem. Most of that ignition stuff's no problem. It's the N dashes. I hate them so much. GM sedans are just the worst.
There's
Especially
All right. Well, I want to speak in regard real quick on B111, B106. A lot of people don't know, back in the ages when I first started, determinators were kind of one of the big competitors of a lock decoder. We had like AccuReader, Easy Reader, and determinators essentially. And then you would have your impressioning and lock disassembly skills. Determinator is what I learned on, and Tom Tusing is the inventor of it. And I like that because he's the guy who opened my eyes to the fact that we can create keys that have been lost using reverse engineering. And in one of his little pamphlets on the B111 or B106 determinators, he said, a way to tell if a lock is warded or non-warded is to take an H76 and try to put it into the lock. If an H76 fits into a B106, B111, it is non-warded. If it does not fit in, it is a warded lock. And what is cool about that is something that Stephen Hoffman once said to me, the cunt. He once said, I said to him, I was like, what difference does it make? Because I can decode a warded and non-warded lock just as easy. And he said, well, the difference is that a non-warded lock decodes like a Chrysler. And he was 100% true. Every time I use my B111 and I pick it and I decode it, and its compression is exactly 1 depth, it doesn't go like 3 depths, I know it's a non-warded lock. I know, amazing.
Amazing. You could also just bring your B106 and your B111 pick and see if the B106 pick fits.
Back in my day, all leashes were Gen 1. And so the leashy that I have for non-warded technically doesn't really fit the cars it's supposed to. So I was almost forced into adapting with the B111. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
God damn, y'all are a bucket of conversation right now.
You guys just stepped out of the room, bro. We just let you talk for a moment there.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting fact, though, because there is a difference. And so the next time you're decoding a lock, Chris, and you start to see that the compression is like super specific to one depth, you know what you're dealing with, you know?
Mhm.
I find that B111 or warded locks they'll compress like 1 to 3. Do you ever have that, Eric, or like 1 to 4 even?
Sometimes. But with the calls that I get, like normally, I mean, unless it's like an in dash, I don't even bother because, I mean, you know, we can pop the ignitions out at the snap of a finger, and that's always
basically
it's always a one shot kill. Like, you know, some of my buddies they still mess around and they'll decode the doors, and you know, my buddy Dave will tell me like, yeah, I got it, man. On the first shot, it only came up with like 2 results, and I cut 1 key, and I'm like, that's great, dude. Like, I'm glad it worked out for you, but I still go for the ignition just because that's the way I am. But yeah, like first starting out, I would decode the doors a lot, and I would I know exactly what you're talking about, where you kind of run into that janky ass decode.
Have you ever taken apart a door lock, Eric, on a B111, B106 key system?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Which one was the hardest?
I don't know.
I noticed that.
But they're all kind of, I don't know. They've all seemed kind of easy to me, but it's kind of naturally easy to me because I'm used to taking things apart. Just from being a mechanic 15 years before doing this. So, I mean, you could take an engine apart and remember where all the bolts go. You should be able to take something as simple as a door lock apart.
I agree.
So I'd be, you know, a complete idiot if it seemed hard to me. But I don't know. They all seem pretty easy to me, to be honest, as far as getting them apart. The only one that I ever really had a real hard time with was that Mercedes trunk lock that I rebuilt. That, you know, I sent you guys pictures of.
That was a different animal. That thing was corroded to crap. Yeah.
Exactly. And again, if it wasn't corroded and needing to be rebuilt, it probably would have come apart pretty easy. It wasn't.
What were you going to say, Chris?
When it comes to most GM Chevys, opening them up, they jiggle super easy. I don't know if it's just my technique or not, but I will get, you know, let's say 100 a year, whether it's trucks or sedans or whatever else, and 95% of the time I can jiggle them right open, which I'm starting to realize I should be using my advantage when I want to decode it. Instead of trying to pick the lock, I can just jiggle it open and decode it that way.
I had a friend, shout out Kevin Boyles. He was struggling once with, I think it was an Impala. I went and visited him after a trip of mine, and he showed me, he took a pick key, or a Marshall key as we used to call them, and he picked his door lock on his car. And it was a B111, and then he inserted his leashy to decode it. So
yeah,
there is something there, you know, for those who do struggle with certain things, that there is an alternative technique that one could, you know, use to help you learn.
Have you ever jiggled a Ford door open?
I was afraid where you were going to take that question at first. I've jiggled many things.
We're all aware of that. I'm sure you have cream now. I've actually used a plug spinner on a car door, a couple of them actually, a couple Peterbilts, a couple Internationals, and it works. Surprisingly, it works. I mean, yes, technology-wise, it just spins it super fast, but I've always was concerned with that. I don't do it very seldomly, but it has saved my bacon a few times.
Have you ever malformed a shutter when you plug spun a lock?
Well, I don't crank it all the way. I give it very little. I have the Goso one. I'm trying to remember which one I have. It's the orange.
You have the black gun one?
No, it's like an orange handle and it has like a blue face on it. It has the spring in it. I'm trying to remember that. I've had it for like a million years, I feel like. But it like ratchets to like certain tensile strengths, and all the way obviously is like very fast, a lot of pressure. And the first action is very little. I've used that just kind of think, just give me a little extra to get past it.
Okay.
But I am not condoning using a plug spinner in a car because obviously there's a lot of pot metal in car locks, and you don't want to mess it up. I'm just saying it has worked before, and when it's 20 below zero and you spend 5 minutes jiggling open that Peterbilt or the International or that Freightliner, and you want to get the fuck back in your van, there are options. I'm just saying.
Why don't you just use an under the window tool to get in?
That's crazy talk.
Talk about that, Paul.
Yeah,
All right,
let's
talk about it.
because you have them all.
Do it.
I'm
Talk.
the last locksmith in America who still likes to use those.
You're crazy. That's
I
why.
bought those tools. I've inherited them from people I bought out, but I'm not gonna. That's archaic technology. Get out of here. No.
They work so much better on semi trucks than anything else. It's so much faster.
I practiced on my dad's Ford F-150 once, and I know, like there's a Z tool that you can do, and you can also go. I was going through the high-tech access manual, and I was like, where's the craziest tool, that I can learn, get my experience in, because I was sure I was going to use these. And I got that tool stuck in my dad's vehicle for like 3 hours, and I was afraid I was going to break his window because it was buttoned up right against his window. So it was at that time I swore I would never, ever even practice with an under the window or through the door tool. Conversely, fast forward like 10 years later, like a year ago, it's winter, and this lady's like, hey, I'm locked out of my Ford Focus. It's like a 2006. I get there, every door handle's ripped off. There's no locks on the doors. There's no linkage that I can see. And her interior door handles are ripped off. And I'm like, how do you open your vehicle? She's like, do you see that rope that's hanging by the air conditioner vent? I was like, yeah. She's like, if you pull that, it'll open my door. Usually I leave it hanging outside of my window, but my boyfriend, didn't do that. If I had in the door tools or under the window tools or whatever they are, I would have succeeded, but I didn't. Paul, how would you have opened that car?
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell without seeing it, but I typically carry one of those small scope cameras with me, and I'd look in the door and see what's going on. And I have the full access tool set.
Do you have a reference manual that kind of directs you into like your options?
The access tools comes with a book that will show you basically the layout of the interior of every door that you're working on. It'll show you where the linkage is, and there's typically a picture on the outside showing the tool inserted.
Okay.
It'll tell you which direction the linkage has to be pulled.
That sounds like a pretty good resource, to be honest with you.
It's great. I'm still waiting for someone to let me use their Mercedes G-Class to use an under the window tool on.
What was that vehicle you showed me that you were able to unlock it through the trunk or through the hatch?
Ford Escape.
Can you explain what you saw real quick, or what you
I haven't done it yet. But it's in the manual. It'll show you how to remove the license plate light. You pull that, I guess it just pops out, and then you stick a tool in there and manually release the trunk lid.
Chris, what's the hardest car you've ever unlocked? Wayne Winton told me on a podcast once that the hardest thing he ever unlocked was a scooter where the keys were locked in the seat, which I can understand how it is.
I had, it was either a Range Rover or it was a Land Rover. Keys were locked in the back of the vehicle, is the SUV, and I never did one of those before. I think I've done like maybe 2 of them since. And so what I did is I took my long reach and I pretty much made like that shape with it. So I wedged underneath the tailgate or the hatch, and I came up and then I bent it again. So I pretty much was like manipulating this big rod into kind of making the right shape until it can come up, down, and under and push the unlock button on the remote. And it worked and didn't do any damage. But it took about 45 minutes to do. And it was like in my second year. That was fun though.
What about
But I
you,
guess
Eric?
I really passed on and everyone else. So I was like, fuck it, I take a spun.
Eric, hardest car to ever unlock? You.
There's two. First one wasn't necessarily hard. It was more scary than anything. So the guy had been trying to get somebody for like almost a month before he somehow found me to open his Porsche. It was a convertible. And he said the key was not going to work in the door. And I was like, well, where's the key? He says locked in the car. I was like, okay. It's HU66. So I get there, pick the door, and the lock just free spins. He's like, yeah, it's not hooked up on the inside. They changed my window regulator at the shop and had the door apart and didn't hook that back up. So it's like, okay, got to try to get creative. I didn't really have a whole lot of tools. So, but it was, like I said, it was a convertible. So I noticed the front window overlapped the back window like this. And it kind of sat on top of it. And then it was all kind of encapsulated under the soft top. So I was able to take my air wedge and slip it in between the two pieces of glass, pump it up, and then slip a long reach down between the two pieces of glass. So it wasn't necessarily that one was hard, but I was shitting my pants the entire time because I was waiting for that glass to just bust, and I end up with an insane bill. But the hardest one I would say would be a BMW 3 Series that this guy decided to lock the keys in the trunk. There's no trunk lock on those. And not only did he lock the keys in the trunk,
The battery died.
he did it with the battery completely disconnected.
Yep.
He was changing the battery, and he had the battery completely out of the car, and then slammed the trunk in shut with the keys in there. So I tried everything I could to get power back there, and I just didn't have any success. So what I ended up doing, well, it was a combination of myself and the customer. I pulled the cover down between the two back seats. You know, it's kind of got like a armrest that comes down with little cup holders.
Yeah.
Right behind that armrest, it's like all leather, but it's actually just like a panel that you can rip it off. And when you pull it off, it's just tabs that hold it. There's still a wall right there, but I think it was like wood or cardboard or something. It wasn't anything like super crazy.
You cut it, didn't you?
I let the customer cut it. He said he said he was okay with it. I said, here's my tool. It's a big ass hole saw. Just cut that shit and I'll reach through there with the long reach and pull the handle. And so, yeah, he cut it. But I mean, dude, like we tried everything forever. Like I tried to put power straight to the button that releases the trunk, and that didn't do anything. I tried putting power underneath the hood. I tried powering everything I could. I had a power probe, and I was just like probing shit, trying to get, and I'm not an idiot. I know, you know what I mean? It's not like I was back probing where I shouldn't have been, but it just was in lockdown, man, with no battery. It won't fucking do nothing. So yeah, that was the hardest one to get into.
I find that's a common trend that for the uninitiated, trunk lockouts can be, pretty different. We got Hyundai, Toyota, Honda, stuff like that. In regards to one of my toughest lockouts, it too was in a trunk, but it was like a 1988 Caprice Classic, right? The car is completely metal. The back seats, the guys, it was at a used car dealership, and their key didn't work in the trunk. That or they locked the key in the trunk, one of the two, I can't remember. But it was within my first 2 years, and I was eager to, land the dealerships, because that's what everybody says, land the dealerships. And so I ended up having to drill that door lock, or the trunk lock, to get it open and replace it. And apparently that's old school. That's normal. They had tools back then that would break the locks over and stuff. But for me, that was pretty intense. And we can't pick those locks because they're sidebar equipped. So kind of a thing that I feel is neat, because nowadays almost every lock is pickable with a leashy. But the old guys back in the day had greater problems to overcome, and yet they still don't get a lot of respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I respect the hell out of anybody who can mess with them old cars, man, because they're, like you said, they're a real pain. They're the simplest little keys, but those locks can be a real bitch.
Watch this. Hey, Paul, what's the most secure vehicle immobilizer system, in your opinion?
Single-sided VATs.
I agree.
Hell yeah.
Chris, you ever make single-sided bat skis?
I have a lot of the tools and resources, but in my neck of the woods, the clientele just doesn't see the appreciation for the cost of such services. So no, I never got into them.
That's a common trend amongst everybody, is that a VATS car can take 2 hours and we can charge, $450, right, would be a decent price. But we could program a Mercedes in less than an hour. You know what I mean? I'm getting harassed by bugs because of all my lights. All right. So,
That's the thing.
Tom?
I agree.
Yeah. After we kind of jumped off schedule or topic a little bit, but as you see, our leashy class is highly relevant in regards to just what you have heard right here, how vehicle systems and even a lockout can really change depending on where the keys are located or what lock is protecting, your target, or what system is in play on the car. For instance, Mercedes-Benz trunk lockout can be difficult if the valet lock is engaged. Additionally, it can also be very easy because we can do what through the OBD port, Eric?
Pop the trunk through the OBD port.
First time I ever did that was yesterday on a friend's car. It was surprisingly easy. So after our leashy class, we are going to be teaching programming, basic stuff of, your bread and butter programming. I really want to develop an emphasis on this particular class curriculum in Miami or Fort Lauderdale to focus on like adaptable technology, because adaptable technology can replace a significant portion of your inventory. And how that is relative to the new locksmith is that it reduces the cost of investment. So I feel that's important to a new guy, because instead of losing a job because your FCC is off by 1 digit, with an adaptable, we can adapt. We can change a proximity remote or a flip key remote or an accessory remote into what we need. I know recently, yesterday, I did an adaptable on a 2014 Jaguar. It was a KVM equipped vehicle, and it took me 2 minutes. You earn $350 off of one $20 key. Anybody have any good adaptable stories?
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I special ordered 3 OEM keys, and they were refurbished OEM for the Cadillac. I want to say it was an SRX. And I went through the programming procedure. One of them programmed, the other ones were broken. And then the one that did program. What?
I said broken.
Yeah, broke. So the one that did program, the proximity features didn't work on. So I grabbed 3 of my Cadillac-styled Autel keys, which looked way better than the refurbished OEM and cost maybe a third of the price, and they programmed right in.
My favorite part about the GM style adaptables is that they come with a preloaded HU100. And I think you can use those on BMW also, or vice versa, where you can use the BMW remotes on GM.
On a legal standpoint, is there any fallacy in using their key system without going through them or their subsidiaries or their distributors, if that makes sense.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
If you're generating a remote for like a Hyundai, and does Hyundai give consent for that software to create that system?
So
I mean, it's not a new technology. It's been around for a little bit. I know that.
That falls into the right to repair category of what do you own whenever you buy your car? Do you own the intellectual property that is operating your car? We do not maintain the ECU. The ECU maintains our car. Somebody put in a program and it's intellectual, it's locked, it's patented, etc. But when it comes to right to repair, one of the biggest things is, what do you own? That key is in your pocket. You paid for the key. Do you own the information within the key? The key breaks down to a transponder.
Does the locksmith have the right's not the correct word. Does the locksmith have the appropriate permissions to generate those systems for aftermarket keys, key equipment? Obviously, the answer is yes, because the stuff's being sold and distributed in the United States.
Permission from who?
Exactly. That's the next point. Because obviously, not every manufacturer writes their own software. A lot of that stuff is third-partied out. I'm assuming.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's all in XP, isn't it?
Watch ECUs, Delco ECUs.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, do you think that's ever going to come up 10 years from now? They say, okay, guess what? Well, here's a good question. The newest Mercedes, you cannot open the trunk unless you are a certified Mercedes technician. Have you seen this?
Says who?
Says Mercedes when they sell it.
So is Mercedes going to sue me if I open a trunk?
It'll probably avoid a lot of the warranty aspects. Yeah.
Well, then that is illegal, because there's actually a case in which it's been ruled upon a precedence where have you ever seen the tags that say it's a sticker and it says removal or breaking the sticker voids warranty? You ever seen that?
Yes.
It's been decided in court that you have the right to look into your devices. You have the right to open your keyboard, your computer. Just the act of opening something or looking inside of what you own does not void a warranty.
It's the new Mercedes EQS, by the way. It's like, I guess, their newest version that's doing that. But no, I know what you're talking about.
It's all. I think that falls in the right to repair. Who owns the car? Who can give consent to service? If I don't buy a Mercedes so that Mercedes can tell me how to drive it. You know what I mean?
I guess it depends. Are you paying a heated seat subscription?
Well, that's BMW. Another topic of what do you own?
Start subscription. But yeah, John Deere owners just got a big win for their lawsuit, I think, the last couple months ago for right to repair issues. It's the same thing. And I know Canada just passed some sweeping reform. I think UK did too. I don't remember, but it's interesting because it is a newer style of locksmithing, basically what you're doing and what you guys are proposing, and it's fantastic. I think that should be the future. Hey, I got purple remotes, I got green remotes. What do you need? We get a lot, but customers are used to a certain shape and size. We all are very familiar with the surfboard proxies, the tombstones, all the different styles. And if customers are playing to win. If they do not get the remote in the shape and size of the one they lost, there's a psychological disconnect. But I think that in the next couple of years, that may be changing, at least on our side for the service industry.
Do you want to know how I see it?
Sure.
I see it like cyberpunk. I see you have an older generation and a newer generation, where the newer generation is used to, here comes controversy, transformation or trans, right? That's the new thing, right? Is being able to adapt into how you see fit. The old generation says a Chrysler remote should look like a Chrysler, right?
Right.
I see it as cyberpunk, where I want to be the person who can offer every person what they desire, right? Mm-hmm. If you want a modified custom remote, I'm willing to offer you that, no problem. But if you also want OEM, I don't have OEM at the time, I will lend you the Adaptable, and then we will order it and sub it out whenever the OEM comes in. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. And here's
Yeah,
a good example.
I do that sometimes too with customers that are particularly picky, and I might not have an OEM on hand.
I want to interject real quick. Why are we allowed to do that? That's because the adaptables are unlockable, they're reusable.
Yeah.
So you lend it out, you take it back. So long as your customer doesn't destroy your property, it's a deposit, if you will.
There's some systems and software which are so very new that adapting them just doesn't make sense yet. If you are buying OEM Ford 3B, clickers that have been used since 1999 for the last 20 something years, no, that's a system that's been around for so long. We should be using OEM, or we should be using aftermarket. It just makes more sense.
But those remotes are like $4 for aftermarket,
Right.
Whereas an accessory Kia remote, albeit newer,
Mm-hmm.
it can be aftermarket $50, right?
Oh, what's OEM cost you? Like a 95 to 100?
Like 95, 125, right? So
OEM flip key where I live from Hyundai, if I just walk in and buy the key uncut, unprogrammed, $400. No transponder, just a flip key with a remote.
You got a lot of mouths to feed. That's all you got to say about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got no parts department. But yeah, I think adapters are the way of the future. I think you're right. You guys know I do a lot of 3D printing. I've always looked into thinking, hey, is it worthwhile to just 3D print some cool, fun remote shell covers? You get a lot of the Durashell stuff for Hondas. And, I think in the next 10, 15 years, we're not going to be waiting for orders to come through for remotes. We're just going to literally generate them on site, or even better, pay for a subscription for that software. Say, hey, this software allows you to generate all the brand new software for Ford, all the brand new software for Toyota or whatever.
Here are all the parameters for the prints that you need,
Yes. What's easier, selling software or building programmers and selling them and keeping them and updating them?
Something interesting like that correlates to what I'm saying is like, Chris, you're 3D printing, everybody's 3D printing. We're all adapting and we're bringing commercial production into our own households, essentially. Do you own the code of the project that you're printing? That's another point of debate. It's the same as a recipe. Is a recipe intellectual property? Is a smell, like things like this, like it's information. And so the way I see it is like we are playing with information to produce an object through a 3D printer. But with a cloner, we're playing with information to produce a transponder / remote type. So they're parallel roads that we're walking down here. And I believe that in the future, there's going to be a confrontation, like you say, between a manufacturer and the end user. Do you have the right to produce my stuff without my loyalties being paid or my permission or consent?
It all comes down to this. I'll tell you right now, is that the proprietary aspect of it applies when it makes someone filthy rich. If it doesn't, they don't care. If Toyota introduces a new system, they're sure as shit not going to allow anyone. Like the new Honda keys are steel, right? Is that my understanding?
That's what I hear. Yeah. I haven't dealt with any myself.
They're trying to get people to not make them because not a lot of people cut steel keys, and most machines are not configured to cut steel keys. If they are, it's probably not going to be out of the back of someone's van. So the people are obviously taking steps, rolling code systems, things like that. NASF having to be tied to certain aspects of programming now. So they've tried to curtail some of that. But
yep.
Would an aftermarket Honda key have to be steel?
It's a good question. It's a great question. But also, how many cars now are actually running with key ignitions and door locks and systems like that? It might be, was it an E-key, I'm guessing, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think Honda even makes a bladed ignition anymore in their new lineup, 22, 23.
It wouldn't need to be steel per se because it's not being used a lot. It's an emergency insert key, right?
Yeah.
But basically a rule is you don't throw a less dense metal at a more dense metal. So if the lock is made out of steel, like the wafers are made out of steel, then a brass key is going to heavily degrade with extended use. But if it's an emergency insert key, I can't imagine them using it 100 times.
Yeah.
How does Honda go from making
most customers don't even know they have an insert key.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that's also true.
Especially with the
W
caps.
uses the plastic keys.
Huh?
And VW uses the plastic inserts because they never get used anyway.
Yeah, most people don't even know they're there. So
I don't even bother testing them half the time, to be honest, because I mean, I did once. I tested one and it broke.
well, let's talk about our Mercedes-Benz class real quick. So day one is going to be leashy focused. We're going to get the rookies and even the experienced guys. We're going to teach you how to do leashy and lock, disassembly, decoding, key origination techniques. We're going to teach you how, information is probably your best friend. It's your worst enemy if you don't know it. Day two of the beginner's automotive class is going to focus mostly on programming so that you can make your money really quick. Earn while you learn, essentially. Friday is a completely separate class. This is going to be my first attempt at teaching Mercedes. I am by no means a Mercedes expert, but I do make Mercedes keys, and I do not fail often. I have failed on one Mercedes, and I bricked it, and it was my fault. I did not ground out the oscillator. And John Dumont of AR Labs specifically noted in his pinout that the oscillator must be affected, in which I did not do it. It was my fault. So we can also talk about that. Pinouts are important. Mercedes. Eric, what is your most favorite thing about Mercedes-Benz and the keys and the programming and stuff like that?
I like that we keep the keys for life. As long as you generate the key files, you can always mail your customer a key, no matter where they're at. And
Can you
actually worked out multiple times for me in my favor that I save all the key files to every customer's car.
do you have to do EEPROM?
No.
You don't?
No.
Explain that real quick.
You talking about to get the password?
Yeah.
Or,
Well, how can you mail a customer a key and it starts the car?
Because you write the key has its own individual file, has its own dump file. You write that file into the key. So you write the car into the key, essentially. You don't put the key into the car. It's kind of
That's
backwards.
pretty cool. Yeah. Does that work with key ignitions as well?
Yeah. Yep.
Eric,
So
or Paul, what's your favorite thing about Mercedes-Benz?
Well, I think we can all appreciate that they came out with a key system in 1997 that was so advanced that they essentially never changed it. You can use the same key from 97 all the way to 2014, and you only have to stock the one.
yes, that is nice. I like that too.
I agree with that. Chris, have you ever made any Mercedes keys or anything like that?
No. That would be a big no on my side.
What is stopping you?
The viability of it up here. I mean, I live in Spokane, Washington, and it's a pretty nomadic city on its own. The nearest big city to us is Seattle, 5 hours away, and then to the east of us is probably Minneapolis, which is 3 states over. Mercedes are not the most prevalent vehicles, and I see Mercedes up here, and there are some people. I think we have one locksmith up here that actually does Euro. That's it, out of 12 to 15 of us in this whole area. It's
He
just
probably
not something.
crushes it.
I was just thinking that. He probably murdering the market.
Yeah, he's that guy that
He's-
gets $1,000 for all keys lost Mercedes, and you get one key.
Yep.
He probably does, and he's been in this area for a long time, and he's well known. He's very reputable, and that's one thing where I'm not dumb. I know how it works. It's just my cup, runneth over. There's no reason to put more on the table when it comes to vehicles if I'm only doing a few of them, and things are going pretty well on the other ends too.
So you
Now,
have
Real quick, do you have a 508 or a 608?
I was just about to ask that, Eric. I know exactly where you're going. I got you, bro. Go for it. Hit him.
So if you buy even the 508, which has the cheaper subscription, doesn't do the coding and programming, so the diagnostic side is a little weaker than the 608, but it does have all the same immobilizer capabilities as the 608. So you buy a 508 with the XP400 package, you're doing Mercedes through OBD, bro.
and G-Box.
As well as everything else.
So you got the IM 508 or 608 already, right?
Me?
You
No.
you don't have it.
No.
I thought you had an
Bro, I'm
old
doing
car.
like 3 cars a month. It's just not on my roster.
We got to change that, dude. So you can buy a package, which I bought myself. It was like $1,800. It's the IM 508, the G-Box, and the XP400. And with just that, you can do Mercedes-Benz. Average price of a Mercedes-Benz Fobic, just one of them, all keys lost, I charge $400. You know what I mean? And it's OBD only, usually. The rare instance is EEPROM, but it's not that advanced. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you could technically pay off your programmer 5 jobs, right?
Yeah.
Probably better than that where he's at if there's only one other guy.
And not only that, with the IM 508, you could open the trunk of a Mercedes whenever the keys are locked in it through the OBD port.
I think the Auto Pro Pad does that also. Never actually
I
had
charge
it.
$250 to do that. Where
Say
I'm
what?
at.
You charge what?
$250 to do that. Where I
Me
live.
too. So
Yeah, so right here, UHS actually has the 508S, G-Box 3, APB 112. So, shit, it's missing the XP6, the XP400. That's usually around $600, but they've got that for $1,200 on sale. But
I'm sure UHS would work out something with whomever would call their rep and ask about it.
yeah, they have packages. You can scroll around, but they have packages that include the XP400 for way cheaper than you could get it if you were one of the early adopters like myself. I had to buy. There were no packages. I had to buy all the shit individually. They
Right.
didn't exist at the time.
Real quick, I want to tell something about what I think is interesting about Mercedes, and that is several locksmiths have approached me before. Just here is an allusion to my past, as I was a high security lockpicker, and there was a guy on the forum whose name was Data Graham, and he was a forensic locksmith. This was like 15 years ago. Back in the day, Data Graham was bump keys were new, basically, kind of. Mark Webber Tobias had just released Open in 30 Seconds, and it kind of illuminated the world of bump keys, because Medico used to say they were bump proof, pick proof, and Mark Webber Tobias proved them wrong and sued them for false advertisement. So it made headlines. And so Datagram was taking microscopic photos of pin tumblers, and he was showing us how a bump key would affect a pin, right? Because it's going to crash into the pin and it's going to impact it and it's going to cause a certain impression. Whereas a lockpick, when it goes into a pin, it scratches because we're feeling around. And so Datagram explained, deep details in a forensic level. So fast forward, whenever I'm doing Mercedes, I get automotive guys telling me about insurance, forensic locksmithing, in which people will buy Mercedes-Benz and they can't afford it. So they'll leave their car in the hood with a key in ignition, and they'll buy and they'll disappear. The car will get picked up and stolen, predicted, obviously. And they will say, we don't know what happened. So a forensic locksmith will come in and EEPROM the system or read it. Why, Eric? Why is that important to Mercedes?
Because you want to know what the last key was used. And Mercedes not only records the last key, but the second to last key used.
There is an audit trail within the keys and the car. So forensically, one can prove if the owner left a programmed key in the car, or if somebody programmed key 7, key 8, etc.
Well, it's also assuming they recover the vehicle, though.
This is true, which is half the battle when it comes to these insurance, auto claims. But that is probably one of my favorite things in regards to Mercedes-Benz. It's 1996 and older, or newer. There is a counter inside of the system that literally keeps track of how many times the key has been put into the car, or the EIS, I mean.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
I likes that.
So we'll be going over all that and more in our Friday class, which is June 23rd. We will be in Fort Lauderdale / Miami teaching with UHS all about Mercedes. Something I cannot speak too much about is keyed ignition Mercedes. I do them. I've done many of them, but what I have not done are the remote programming. What can you tell me about the remote programming, Paul?
Well, I've only done one, and it was only an add key job. I didn't have to disassemble anything. I used the KR55 key maker,
Yes.
and it was all through OBD, or they had one of those sniffer keys that you put in, and it reads the information you need. It was really straightforward. You just follow the instructions, and
That's new. That's new to us, basically, that technology. There was essentially nothing else besides a dealer tool that could match a remote to a keyed ignition Mercedes, at least to my knowledge.
And my customer had contacted the dealership, and they said that they weren't going to help them. They didn't have those keys anymore.
Because there's been a back order due to Amazon, is what I hear.
For the flip keys, the remote.
You worked on a Sprinter, Paul, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sprinter keys. Yeah.
I don't know. I've been told that I've had multiple customers tell me any flip key with the remote for bladed ignitions that the dealer can't do anymore or won't do.
Period.
Yeah, like Crossfire. I've had customers with Crossfires tell me they want me to do the remotes for them because even the dealer won't do them. How true is it? I don't know because I don't own one. I've never gone to the dealer, but I know around here the dealerships won't have anything to do with those flip keys.
Uh,
How much did you pay for your KR55, Paul?
I think a little over $2,000.
And how much did you charge for the one key?
The one spare key, $800.
How do you feel about that?
To find a few more people to pay it off.
You're pretty close already, though, right? Off of one key. How much does a KR55 flip key cost?
I think they're in the $80, $85 range.
I think they're about $85, $95.
Can you only use proprietary keys with the KR55?
As far as I know.
Okay.
Well, if you want the remote, if you just want a transponder key, you can use anything.
Yeah.
Is EEPROM required in all keys lost when you use KR55?
I know on some models, absolutely.
So let's say a 2006 Crossfire, all keys lost. If you have KR55, can you plug into the OBD port and perform all keys lost?
No.
Not to your knowledge?
No. I've done it with KR55 and had to load the EEPROM.
So you'd have to know EEPROM.
I think on the ML series, it can do it all keys lost through the OBD port.
I think
Yeah,
you're right.
I think there's some of them it can do, but the Crossfire is not one of them. And I remember it had this. It came with. Yours probably came with it too. Those little.
I bought the most expensive kit. It better have come with everything that there is.
Okay, so you got all the shit. The little cradles. The cradles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
with the car prog and all that.
Real quick, I want you to just real quickly speak in regard to when you needed tech support and how the decision in where you bought your KR55 affected your tech support that you received.
So it's actually very important where you buy it, because not only do you see the logo of the place you bought it every time you start the tool. So I had a question in regards to it, and the place where I purchased it, which was UHS Hardware, they didn't have anyone available on the weekend, and I had accidentally called someone else who sells these. I didn't know that it was someone who sells these tools, but he answered the phone right away, and he said, "Well, what's your customer number?" But I didn't buy it from him, so.
So he refused you tech support.
Yeah, he wouldn't even answer one question. He was very nice about it, but he said he didn't buy it from me, so.
But he was prudent about it, which is, I felt, I have experienced somewhat of the same thing. I once purchased Diag Speed, which was $5,650, and that was a promotional discount. And because I am who I am, I have a reputation, the tech support of DiagSpeed decided to blacklist me immediately. I had never said anything about DiagSpeed, never even used it. I had bought it because it seemed like a good idea. And so when it comes to needing tech support, I did need it at one point, and nobody would answer my call. And that heavily affected my opinion of the company. And so when you told me that little nugget of information, I respected the fact that the guy was nice to you. And I also respected the fact that he refused you, because it's something to consider. So our Mercedes-Benz class is going to be the 23rd on Friday. But I got to be honest with you guys. I'm most excited about October. Chris, are you excited about October?
I am excited for October. I am ready. I got my cowboy boots ready.
What's going on in October? Why would you need cowboy boots? You're not a cowboy.
I'm not a cowboy. I'm in the Northwest. Idaho is next door. We got some good old boys up here. But I think the reason I'm excited for October and the reason I'm excited for cowboy boots is the TLA is going on.
That's right. Hold on one second.
The TLA is that? Oh my goodness!
This guy.
This is my trophy.
You don't even have a membership card.
Yeah, I saw that Amanda was out there somewhere. I just hate, Amanda, if you're listening, we love membership cards, by the way.
Amanda, your champion doesn't even have a membership card. What's up with that? I've got my cowboy hat, but no membership card. I want to talk about the TLA because
you want to talk about the TLA. I want to talk about the TLA too.
Oh my God, we have so much in common. The TLA is where friends become family, it seems. I'm serious. I know it's corny, but most conventions are like assembly lines where the cattle are herded through the tables of the convention. Here's your free swag in your bag. Now move it along. Move it along. That's how I feel when I go to certain conventions. But at the TLA, I feel like they do things a little different. For instance, it's not as big, which is okay. It's more personable. That's the one thing you told me that you appreciated the most, Chris. You said it was different, right?
It was very cozy. It had like a big convention feel, but everyone knew each other. If I've been to some conventions where, yeah, some people might know each other. They might have seen them in the past. But the TLA, keep in mind, all these people operate in the same state. I think you and me are like the exception to that rule. So everyone knows everyone. Oh yeah, and you guys.
All of us.
Yeah, us, the royal us. But everyone knows everyone. They know, hey, your nephew's from Austin, and I fixed your uncle's car when he was driving through, Corpus Christi, and it's a small, well, not a small, but it's a big family.
There's a lot of charm whenever you go to it. You see a lot of just good interactions. One of my favorite people, I can never remember her name. What's her name, Paul? The old lady.
Ooh.
Bonnie.
Bonnie Morse.
Bonnie.
You would know her name if you had a membership card because she signed it.
Because she would sign it. Bonnie. I want my membership card. I think you're great. And I remember it because Bonnie and Clyde. That's how I try to remember it. But Bonnie's a little badass. All right, so there was an election once for TLA president in which Bruce Horn mistakenly won. And I asked Bonnie who she was going to vote for. And she told me to mind your own damn business. And
so I'm not telling
I fell
you.
in love with her. I ain't gonna tell you. I was like, all right, damn. I thought you liked me, But yeah, Bonnie, I need my membership. Me and Chris have something special that we've been cooking up.
It's meth. Let's be honest. It is 100% pure meth. That's the secret.
we've been Breaking Bad together. It's
No, we've been cooking meth. That's what it is.
mhm. The
Getting
leashy competition is something that we're looking forward to because of why.
Why?
He's gonna win it.
Actually, he's not going to win it. And you want to know why he's not going to win it? Because I'm going to cripple him in the parking lot before he gets in there. But more importantly, we Lockjaw Manufacturing, I believe in conjunction with the Academy as well here, we're going to be providing two things for the leashy competition this year at the Bell of the Ball, the TLA Leashy Lockpicking Championship. We're going to be providing a winner's purse, and B, we're going to be providing a very special item. You may call it a trophy, but I think trophy is not really the right word.
Yeah,
We're in Texas. Things are bigger in Texas. Things are more extravagant. We can't just do a small little pissy trophy. I mean, come on, put it on the shelf. That's fine, right? It's nothing special. We wanted to go big or go home for this, right?
100%. 100%. Should we maybe give them a sneak preview?
If you got it, go ahead.
Do you have a sketch?
Well, this is no final, design, but basically what we're going to do is design a championship belt. And we're not going, lightly on this design. We really want to put a lot of thought into it. So we're being tedious. But for the most part, we can customize almost every aspect of this belt to where the center image is going to have the TLA logo and such. And we're going to dress it up from there how we see fit. The belt apparently will have 6 pounds of metal on it. It's how they advertise it. So I think it's going to be freaking awesome once it's finished. We can choose anything from red alligator skin to black and gold rattlesnake texture to just plain white or whatever. So who knows what the hell is up for grabs.
If you do not win this belt, not you, but whoever's out there listening, if you win this belt and you do not go pick up your groceries wearing it, I'm going to be disappointed. If you go on Tinder and you get a date and you don't show up in this belt, it's a shame. This thing is going to be so over the top that you're going to want to make sure that the public sees it.
Yeah. It's almost I won't say it.
That's a first.
So why am I not going to win this belt?
Did I threaten to give you a stone cold stunner in the parking lot?
I think it was a hand job.
That's not correct.
I don't know. Stumbling there.
40.
I am the champion, so we're not sure how to technically play this. Do I compete for a belt that I helped design, or do we give the belt away? I'm conflicted, right? So
I suggested that you engrave second place in the bottom.
yeah, that way we can give it to whomever I beat.
What self-respecting Texan wants to lose to some punk from Missouri anyways? I mean, let's be honest here.
What's wrong with you, Texas? Don't you have any real lock pickers? I mean, shit, we even use a leashy. That's almost cheating where I'm from.
I broke my KW1 leashy yesterday. I broke my little... And now to actually pick my quick sets now.
Rumor has it, Chris, that you're working on a competition stand.
For TLA?
Or something else, maybe.
Ooh, that is a top secret project, but I know that there are some rumblings, and we as a industry need something really fun. We can't just show up to these conventions and kick around swag and fill up tote bags and go home. We should have something more to do than that. Maybe something that's more entertaining, that has more vigor,
more
to
reach, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's something to keep your ear to the ground. There might be something coming up here, and as details form. I'm saying by this time next year, there may be something else going on around
something kind of big, potentially. So we'll say that.
If
Just
you like lockpicking, just stay tuned. Stay tuned, boys.
I say if you like lockpicking, keep your eye on the TLA competition because it is just the beginning of what can potentially happen. I've noticed that in my time of being a lockpicker to a locksmith, the prevalence of lockpicking videos is picked up on social media. We all know somebody who makes videos on YouTube. I'm guilty. And also, rest in peace, Captain Lockpick. But there's a lot of popularity within just that small little, sector of our industry. Do you think that can potentially be used to bring more people into our industry? Or do you think that's niche to where they're only going to stay in that one bubble?
5 to 10 years ago, it was niche. That's not the case anymore. I know I have people that I go deal with on a normal basis, and I'm sure you guys have probably run into this too. I go to deal with a restaurant. Hey, we got a backdoor lock that's not working. Okay. Oh, they got deadbolt in. If you guys know restaurants, they prop everything open, including doors using deadbolts. So you go in there, you fix whatever. Oh, you guys pick locks just like LPL on YouTube, and it's very common. It's kind of seeped out the same way that do you guys remember around the mid-early 2000s when Ink Masters was a huge thing? Everyone was getting tattoos on TV, and it was just so mainstream. That's kind of what's happened with lock picking. It's become closer to mainstream than it ever has been.
I believe that 100%. It's almost like
the Locksmith. I don't know if it's any good or haven't seen anything about it other than
I haven't.
There was that. I think it was Ryan Phillippe was the main character or something.
What the hell are you talking about?
It's a movie.
A movie called The Locksmith.
Never seen it.
It's like brand new. I don't even know.
It came out like 4 months ago, 3 months ago.
Something like that. Let me see.
But since we're on that topic, did you know that Al Pacino has a movie out where he is a locksmith called Manglehorn? It's good. It's not about locksmithing. It's about the life of a depressed man at the end of his career, but he's a locksmith. And he's using under the door tools, and he has an old 80s Chevy's van that says Manglehorn Locksmith, and it hits home because you're like, oh, I know that tool, I know that machine, I know that key, I know that technique. That's cool. But watch it sometime.
One of my favorite kind of locksmith related scenes, modern, is Ant-Man, where they use a strong arm mini rig to penetrate a safe.
Oh, and they fill it with water and they blow it up. Whatever they did.
Yeah, then they completely blow it out of proportion. They freeze the lock and stuff like that. But still, nonetheless, I thought it was cool that they actually used a real piece of equipment.
TLA.
I want to mention the TLA is also looking for sponsors. Sponsorships, can range in monetary value. They will include opportunities for sales pitches and the opportunity to teach classes. The TLA is also looking for vendors to fill the convention floor. Booth spaces start at $675 and can range to $775. And you can purchase multiple booth spaces to facilitate whatever you need. And when it comes to this now, something important is developed with the TLA in which it's a hell of an opportunity. I have been teaching for the TLA for 2 years in a row. I will probably be teaching this year, but something makes me want to change that. Something makes me almost unwilling to sacrifice my teaching slot so that I can attend the TLA. Does anybody know what that might be? Dave McOmie is going to be coming to the TLA, and he will be teaching a 2-day safe penetration course. And per his own course description, he basically says that they're going to drill safes open until they kick everybody out. So Dave McOmie is a legend. I actually have a Dave McOmie book right next to me. Anybody who's anybody knows who that is. You all know who that is, don't you?
I know. 'cause
I'm not
you-
a safe person, but since I've been progressing my career, I think that what's what I'm looking for here. His names came up more than once, but since I'm not a safe person, I didn't understand the tantamount of his works until obviously now speaking to you guys.
He's a prevalent name within the industry, even if you're not in his field of study. We all generally know who he is. Lockmasters has sold his books, and he's been a proponent for education in this industry for quite a long time. From what I have gathered, Dave McOmie's coming later on the years of his age, so he's not teaching as much as he used to. And again, from what I understand, I think this is the only educational class currently scheduled this year.
How do you get into all these classes that are happening at the wonderful TLA this year in October, Jareth?
The TLA will be putting up their roster and schedule here soon. They're still trying to allocate exactly how they're going to arrange their ducks. The question that we're being confronted with essentially is if Dave teaches a class, a 2-day class, while me, Paul, and Eric are teaching, how many students will Dave pull from my class?
Well, and how many educators will he pull from your class?
I've already informed my team that if there is an opportunity for any of them to attend his class, that I encourage them to. I'm willing to teach it solo for my team to attend.
I got a better solution for you.
Go
Now, you
for it.
guys remember the days of substitute teachers where they'd bring in that cart with the TV on it and they'd play a movie?
Reading Rainbow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys just do that for your class? You guys can all go take the safe class, all wheel in the cart, and then they can watch, they can watch Neverending Story like 3 times throughout the day. It'll be fine.
Here at the Locksmith Academy, we have over 1,150 videos that we can play while we go learn safes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Chris
So-
can just scroll through and shit, we could build a whole lesson. Chris can teach our class.
We can we can put it on autoplay and it'll play itself and they can just
Yeah.
Speaking
watch
of
it.
TLA and speaking of education, I've taken a lot of automotive classes. I've taken them at Just Cars. I've taken them at Aloha. I've taken them at the TLA. And why did I go down to the TLA, Jared? Do you remember why I showed up in Texas last year?
I promised you oral.
That is not the point. It was that I said, if you ever taught a class, I would go, right? I said, I promise if you teach a class, I'll support you and I'll go. And you said, well, I happen to have a class coming up here in Texas and just like that.
I did that. And also when I said it like that, I swung my elbows back and forth like a prospector. That's exactly what I did. But you're misremembering because what it actually was is you said that the moment I have a booth at a convention.
Oh, yes. It was a booth because you were already doing teaching. Yes, it was.
Yeah, we taught a class.
You had a booth
before.
for Academy. Yeah.
You thought you were setting the bar high, right? Because you're like, well, he's already taught, so if I say teach again, he'll be like, damn, come next year. So Jareth, if you ever get a booth, and I was like, I already got it, and you were like, fuck, now I got to go.
That's basically what happened.
It's exactly what happened.
I went down, I took this class, and I remember it was very lighthearted. You were talking about topics that most people are familiar with. And then you got into European, and it was like everyone's tone just fucking shut down. Everyone got super serious. You could just see the room. Everyone was like perking up and listening. It was crazy. It was crazy, dog, but it was fun. It was one of the most entertaining educational classes I've ever had in terms of automotive.
That did happen. One of my favorite things to do is like the class is like it's like a town hall. There is an orator, me and my team, but you are free to engage us, to compel us, to protest us, etc. To offer your input. And you're right. Up until the European, there was definitely one guy who was talking a whole lot. and I liked
Yeah,
him.
he knew his stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, he was a
Well, yeah,
good dude. But I know what you're saying, because the moment we got into Mercedes and BMW, he suddenly was at the edge of his seat and very attentive, very like, you know what I mean? It was a very good class.
It was a good
It
class.
was a really good class. There were people there who had never done any automotive locksmithing, and there were a few people there who would consider themselves experts, and I think everyone learned something that
Mhm.
in the 2-day class.
Maria, the girl who sat up front, and her husband were my favorite, because they didn't even know how to cut a Chrysler key, a CY24. And they had a Dodge Ram that they bought with a, used Fobic, and its insert key wasn't cut. And I was like, what a perfect opportunity, your own personal truck, your own personal key. There you go. There's your perfect, your chance. And they actually bought their first key machine after our class. What did they buy, Eric? I can't remember.
I think they got the Dolphin too, over at the UHS booth.
Yeah, which was directly across from our booth. So it was really cool. We got to see them attend our class. Like, I got to see their minds being blown, because like she pulled out her key and I was like, oh my God, it's not cut. And she's like, how do you know it's not cut? I'm like, it's a blank key, And we taught her that. We taught her everything.
Yeah.
And she's like, what leash would I use for the truck? We're like, CY24. And so it's like, that's a lot of people have, issues teaching newbies, I feel. But I love the newbie, because I remember when I was a newbie. It's just, it's an exciting point. It's like whenever the caterpillar turns into the butterfly. You know what I mean?
3 years ago for me.
How long?
3 years.
That's why you're you, because you move fast.
Yeah. But still, I
Like
started
Chris,
taking locks apart. Don't know what the hell a leash is, how to use it. Yeah.
I see Chris as my next project. I'm going to convince him to get the Autel. We're going to start talking about Mercedes more. And but for the meantime, I do want to shift focus again. We're talking all this stuff, right? My class was great. I loved it. But it still doesn't matter. I still can't have it my way, and I'm upset. Amanda, the president of the TLA, won't open the schedule so that I can take his class. I don't know if she can. Right now, the TLA is currently scheduled from Wednesday to Saturday. Let's take a look real quick. The dates are the 25th to the 28th. And the question is, does she open the schedule another day so that Dave McOmie can fill his 2-day course and not take everybody else away? Do we double dip? Do we exploit the legend? What do we do?
Like, I think give him the opportunity to make that call if he wants to get there earlier. But then again, if I know I have a full week of classes with his safe stuff, your automotive, and if they have, SFIC master systems.
They do.
So perfect. Why would you not want to be there for the whole week? Austin is amazing with really good ramen, remarkably. I don't know why. But
Oh, don't even.
Bro.
I hope it's going to be in Pflugerville, because I really didn't like Austin.
It is in Pflugerville. It's
Same place.
technically the convention is held at a hotel outside of Austin, and it's called Pflugerville. What does Pfluger mean? Plow? Isn't that what it means, Paul? Something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, so Pflugerville is like a suburb. It's like, how Chicago has like Crystal Lake or whatever the hell. They have their suburbs that aren't ghetto. So that's what I also like about the TLA, is that the TLA doesn't put you in danger like Houston when I went to the HL Flake trade show. And I think it was something like 37 locksmith vans, attendees, their vans got broken into in the parking lot. So that's a big net positive for me, is that I can actually go outside, wander around, and not get, molested or mugged.
Yeah. No more Mustangs.
Yeah,
No
I'm
more
not going to make that mistake.
That's all I gotta say. No more Hey, shout out
It was-
Jimmy, dude. Jimmy is the greatest guy ever. gave us the keys to his truck. Doesn't even know us. Just a
So
nice
for all those out there,
Jimmy's awesome.
I
Yeah,
was the one that actually rented a car for this shindig. I was at the airport and I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna get an SUV, you know, whatever. And they're walking down the line of people they're waiting to pick up their cars. Like, hey, anyone want a Mustang? We'll get you out here in 2 minutes. I'm like, why not? So I get this like 2-door Mustang, and we get it back to the hotel, and we're all like, let's go have some dinner. And like the 4 of us trying to fit into this tiny little Mustang, it was like a fucking clown car.
I didn't see a problem at all.
I
Plenty
bet
of
not in
space
the front
seat.
seat, asshole.
That back of the Mustang, I couldn't even hunch. I was like this back there. It was the most ridiculous car.
It got
I've
us
ever
from
seen.
point A to point B, and it worked.
I'm short
time.
at 5'6" and did not fit in the back seat of that car.
Just because my feet carry me from point A to point B doesn't make the journey any less shitty, right?
Yeah, it was like
I stand by his
rolling in
comeback.
it was like riding in a rolling coffin.
Yeah, it was. I was like,
You seem like a
I
pretty
felt like
good
a turtle hiding from a predator. I was like,
Yeah.
damn,
You seem like a pretty good driver, Chris, but I was
I'm
fucking
a decent
terrified
driver.
in the
You know
back
what
of that car.
disappointed me though?
I
There's
was
so many toll
terrified in
booths.
the back of that car.
You should have been. There are all those toll booths in Texas where you have to like go through those little like, I called it threading the needle, right? You have to like drive through that toll booth area and it takes you back to the main road. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
Kim said the same shit.
There's a
70
lot of
miles
them. And you know what? I'm watching people do like 80, 90, 100 miles through these things. I'm thinking all you gotta do is just blink wrong and you're a fucking smudge on the road. And here I am going like 45, putting through like, okay, we're doing all right. We're moving. No, these guys are just like, I'm just like, jeez. My little heart murmurs just like thinking about that.
yeah. Kim, Amanda's mom. Funny story. I had her blocked for like 3 years, and then we flew out to the airport, and she picked us up at the airport, and I was like, my heart dropped. I was like, oh shit! Like the moment I got to Texas, I was going to be confronted by the Eagle, right? And sure enough, she tore my ass up as soon as I got into the van. She did. She's like, I know you're here to help us, but you're going to listen to what I got to say. And boy, I was just like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yep. But me and Kim eventually bonded, and she turned out to be pretty awesome. She drove that minivan like it was a space shuttle re-entering the atmosphere. She shot through the toll booths like you mentioned, and she literally said, as she's going, she's like, you got to thread the needle. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this lady's fucking nuts.
She ain't afraid to die, and she ain't afraid to take you with her.
No, she was not. She was fuck around and find out. And it was awesome.
I got to see the Tesla factory. That was pretty cool, though.
Yeah. That's another thing is, Texas is just huge. Not to mention the Lone Stars that are everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little ridiculous.
I come from a very mountainous region up here in the Northwest, forests everywhere. I get to Texas, and first thing I'm just like, where's all the living things at? It's just very barren, which is okay. It's Texas. I get it. That's the landscape. That's the geography of the area. It was very night and day for me. So it took me a couple days to kind of like wrap my mind around that there's not like a forest around every corner like it is up here.
I agree. Yeah. Paul and me have the same conversation. Whenever he drives to me, he says, I know I'm getting close to you because I start to see a forest. Mm-hmm. And so he's from Kansas where
it's the plains,
nothing
right?
exists. Yeah, nothing exists.
Yeah, it does. You just have to water it.
It's terrible. It's the worst. Kansas is how the Dust Bowl is possible because there's no trees or hills to block the damn wind. And so when I went there, I swear I was inhaling pollen from Alaska because it traveled across the plains unobstructed, and it nearly killed me. Paul, he's like, it's nothing.
I have friends from the South who are living a town over, and they posted on Facebook the other day, it's June and it's snowing. And apparently that was just cottonwood trees that have those, like, they shed millions of those seeds that are real furry, and it looked like snow.
Well,
So we do have trees.
when I
You have
moved from Santa
very-
Cruz, California, back in 2009 up to Spokane, I'd lived on the coast my entire life. I mean, I could see the ocean from just about anywhere, wherever I was at my whole life. I get, God, what is that? 7 hours inland. And the first month I was there, I had the worst reaction to pollen in my life. Like I had my first job when I first got up there, you know, not my first job, but it's like the job I had when I got there, if I became a locksmith and stuff. And my sinuses and my reactions were so bad. I had to work a week with toilet paper jammed up both my nostrils, and just it was horrible. Like I've never had such a reaction to pollen in my life,
What else have you jammed up your orifices?
bro.
No comment, I see. Interesting. We'll move on. So speaking of the TLA and Dave McOmie and attendance and how we structure the schedule, you mentioned that we should probably talk to Dave McOmie, right? Well, too bad. We don't have him. I wish we did. Wouldn't that be an awesome thing to surprise people with? But what we do have is an email from Dave McOmie where he basically says that the class size is only limited by the amount of safes they have to operate on. So you have to consider the logistics of this stuff, because a lot of people just fly to the convention and show up and participate and leave. We are faced with an issue here.
Is this the beginner's class? Is this an intermediate class? Will this be an advanced class?
He covers a broad spectrum from pulling the dial, which is very basic. Very basic. How do you pull a dial? Why do you pull a dial? That's how you get to the
I got that much safe experience. So
exactly. And so and then it progresses down to what he described as side drilling, top drilling, hard plate, etc. So Dave McOmie is the kind of knowledge that is never lacking. Whatever you're going to ask him, I'm sure he'll have an answer to. It's why I want to attend his class. I'm excited. I'm anxious. I don't want to miss it. But logistically speaking, we're confronted with a problem. If we can fill the class with 50 people, which I can, how do we get 50 safes? How do we get 50 big ass armored containers that are designed to be hard to move into a hotel? No damage, efficiently, etc. Any ideas?
That's an insurance fiasco waiting to happen. So maybe we do 25 and we double up.
It's possible. But more what I'm thinking is, if we can get 50 safes, how could we even get them, procure them, and transport them?
Well, then you also have to get rid of 50 safes when you're done.
Or repair 50 safes and then get rid of them when you're done. So if there are people who are local to the, the Pflugerville, Austin, greater area, it would be a pretty significant help if you might volunteer a safe for service. Perhaps you have a back room or something lying around that you can offer as a sacrifice. I'm sure that we can facilitate removal and disposal. I'm sure we can find a scrapyard or something that'll take.
You can call any metal scrap and they'll come pick it up, basically.
Yeah, I mean, take a whole tonnage of of metal. But what we really are going to struggle with, and what I really would like to achieve, is having the option of producing 50 safes at least. I feel Dave McOmie is the kind of opportunity that we don't want to waste.
If he's going to bring his wisdom across the country and teach us, we could probably orchestrate that. I mean, it depends also with the size safe we're going to be doing and logistics involved. And we got
something else I wanted to know that I'm not clear on is how exactly does his class operate? Does he demonstrate a safe and then we all do a safe, or does he go by one by one by one? Do we all have to have drilling equipment or rigs, scopes?
That's a great question.
Like
That's a
what
fantastic
exactly?
How are
You
you gonna?
know,
Do you have 50 strong arms? Do you have 50 bits? Do you have 50 scopes? Do you have 50? You probably are gonna have 10 safes, and then people are gonna be broke up into groups, and you explain it to a group, and you progressively just each group is working on a different process, and then you go back and revise it, and then you check them again, and then they move on to the next step, and or it could be stations like, hey, this station you're gonna learn how to drill. This station you're gonna learn how to pull dial. This station you're gonna learn how to do this. So there's like 4 or 5 people at each station, kind of moving around through the process. I don't know.
I think it's amazing. Like, if Dave McOmie is accustomed to educating, people in such an environment, he must be goddamn good. You know what I mean? Like, how do you effectively train a whole group of individuals in something so tedious? So, Paul, I wanted to just ask you. Paul is an expert in finding items. If you were to advise maybe some helpers or some people who are in Texas, what advice would you offer on finding good deals on used equipment?
Well, there's always eBay, but I'm pretty sure we all know a locksmith or two who's retiring, who's trying to get rid of all that stuff. I trying to get to a specific point here and I missed it, or
How are you so good
Because you find
finding pack-a-punches? Paul has like 3 or 4 GSA field safes that are pretty damn rare, and he finds at least once a week. So you're being a little mysterious and a little, how do you find your deals?
I look often.
Often. Or do you use keywords like special searches or maybe?
Yeah, I have my safe searches on eBay, and I check all the time. I've checked twice since we were on this call. So.
Yeah. So perhaps maybe Craigslist as well. One of my favorite tactics is searching eBay for an item I want and then hitting the sold results and looking for buyers who have previously sold an item I want. And then I reach out to that buyer and ask them if they have anything that they are going to list in the future or haven't listed yet. So that is one tip that I offer. Chris.
intentionally misspelling something.
Yeah. Or broadly, like key machine instead of typing pack-a-punch or right-hand, right?
Yeah.
On that topic, you can create macros where you can just type certain keywords and it'll give you the results. It'll scan different criteria. Like it'll search all of Craigslist every 12 hours. It'll search all of Facebook Marketplace with different phrases you put together for third-party macro engines you create. And you can basically, anytime someone posts something that's relative to your search terms, it'll let you know and you can check it out first pretty quickly. It said, it's been 3 weeks. I should probably look into it and see if anyone's posted anything. You'll know every time the word fob gets put on Craigslist in your area or something.
Is that real time, or is it like eBay where someone posts a pack-a-punch and I've already purchased it by the time they get the notification?
It depends. It's been a while since I did that. I imagine the technology's gotten better.
When Paul dies, if it's before me,
We're raiding his house.
I will be the first at the estate sale.
I mean, he looks pretty healthy. I think he's an
Actually, you see, I already have a document that says that you're going to be doing the estate sale, so it's all good.
Oh yeah, I get commission then, right? I get dealer's choice. That's what I'm saying. Lion's share. Aloha. So we have a couple of shows that we're going to. We're kind of busy this summer. We have Miami, at Fort Lauderdale, Miami, June 21st through the 23rd. That's 2 classes. One class is 2 days. The other is 1 day. Then we're going to be at the TLA.
No, Aloha.
We're going to be at Aloha. Aloha is in August.
August, I think 6th. August
Are you
3rd.
going to be attending Aloha?
Me? No, I'm not gonna be attending this year. I don't know. There was some things that they did this year that put a lot of bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And if you own a map of the United States, you know, that Washington's very far away from Florida. And while last year was in Vegas, that was pretty cool. It was definitely viable. But for me to fly with a Florida, and I don't know, for me, if I was going to pick a convention I really want to go to this year, I had to choose between Aloha and TLA. I chose TLA just because I feel like it's a better convention for me. It's closer. It's at a better time of year. It's you either get Vegas hot or you get summer Vegas hot or summer Florida hot, and both are not good. They're both not good. One's dry and one's wet, and I'm just choosing not to do it this year. I think that, you know, maybe I think a lot of the constituency of the Aloha kind of felt the same way. I know a lot of people that had the same sentiment where they said, you know what, I'm just not going to go this year. There's things that were on their ballots that really irked a lot of people. And
So there's some politics that are going on that are affecting the decision of people whether to attend or not.
it has nothing to do with the convention. It has something to do with the leadership of the organization, that there were some decisions that were being brought up into the voting that a lot of people didn't agree with. I can't really speak on that because some people aren't members and some people are, and then there might be changes happen to that. So I'll leave that for where it's at right now. But I just chose to spend my money on a convention that I think is going to be a lot more appreciative of it this year,
Interesting.
if that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah. Interesting. Spend your money at a place that you feel appreciates it more,
Mm-hmm.
where it will go and actually benefit them more.
Well, yeah, I mean, as organizations go, there are people that have been in the industry and with the Aloha for decades, and they will notably say, I don't know why I'm writing this check every year. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything. To me, you think about what we have in the modern times. If you have a Netflix service, if you have a Netflix account, and let's say the Netflix screwed up for one day, I couldn't use it, you'd be pretty pissed, right? If you had cable television and it just stopped working for one day, you'd be pretty pissed. Most people are. The correlation of cost and value when it comes to, at least in this industry with organizations, just doesn't exist. There's no fighting scammers. There's no, you know, if I tell a customer, hey, if I pull out my Aloha card and I say, hey, guess what? You know what? You don't have to be worried about anything because I got this bad boy right here. You know what I mean? If I pull this out of car lockout, they're gonna be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking. It doesn't fucking mean nothing to me. Are you giving me a good price or not? Hurry up. You know what I mean? So it has no weight. It has no value to some people. It has, I don't know.
So the Aloha membership no longer carries a safeguard in your opinion. Like, does that mean
the largest and oldest organization in our industry should have a lot more gravity to it than it does? You should be able to say, hey, this should give me, in my opinion, it should give you discounts at certain places that are relative to my industry. If I was going to say, I need to order 30, you know, B series Schlage deadbolts. Oh, you're a Aloha member? Boom, you get a little bit of a discount or something. They do have perks like for healthcare and some other things too that they're part of being a member, but I'm not sure the exact year they were founded, but I know it's been a long time. I feel like it should be. If you look at electricians and plumbers, when was Aloha founded?
Somebody's mentioned to me that locksmiths should become like unionized. What do you think? Would that solve anything, or are scammers impenetrable? Is there a certain?
That's a great question, and it's adaptive. So you all remember at first where it was they hit maps, right? It was, I have Acme Locksmith next thing. The next day I have Acme A1 next to me. They attacked maps. That was their thing. Then they started getting on ads, and then we had advanced verification, and then that didn't do anything. We have Google local services, which didn't do anything, and then they don't verify. They are being duped by they rent a corner spot in a salon. They put a key machine and a couple party packs of Defiance from Home Depot. Next thing you know, it's a locksmith shop that has 500 reviews overnight, and like no one raises any flags about it. If I were going to build an association, that would be the number one criteria, would be education, protection for those in the industry and the prevalence of making sure consumers are aware, whether that's working with the federal government, state agencies, or whatever. In my state of Washington, you need more paperwork to pull a fish out of a river than you do to become a locksmith. Literally.
So you think that there should be more control, more paperwork in order for a locksmith to operate?
Well, less paperwork doesn't help.
Do you appreciate the paperwork that's required to pull a fish out of the water, or do you have you disdain it?
Because if I understand there's a reason for that, and that's so someone doesn't go in there and pull every single fish out of the river, and there's obviously a preservation of the ecology of where the fish are. I get that, I understand that. But I was reminded about the model that Australia has, where they pretty much rat each other out and the state goes after them for it. That allows them to say, hey, we have a system set up that you have to be a locksmith to do certain things. If you're not, then other locksmiths are encouraged because the state goes after them so quickly. They shut them down, they fine them heavily, they actually act on it. Where we've had instances where we've reported people to the state for no license, they're doing contractor work, they're doing garage doors, all these things require an actual contractor's license. Anything over $600, anything over $100 or anything over $1,000 in the state of Washington, whether it's building a shed, you're replacing locks on a building, requires a specific contractor's license because of the price involved. State won't do anything until they find out, oh, hey, they're doing stuff that we can actually fine them heavily for. Now we'll get involved. Okay, here's $1,000 fine. By that time, these companies have made $200,000 a year. They don't give a shit. So the incentive for us to be honest doesn't exist much anymore.
I agree with that. And it seems like it's kind of like a catch-22. The more government help you want, the more they want to tax the good guy to pay for the protection or the services that are curtailing the protection of the legitimate.
Some of the states where it does exist, though, some of the states that do have legislation in place, it's a toothless process. It's like, yes, we have a license. Okay, well, it's just a tax now. Okay, well, what does that do for us? Well, you need a license to do the work. Okay, but do you guys do anything about the people that don't have licenses? Well, not really. So why is it there in the first place?
Sometimes I think it should be almost mafioso style, where legitimate guys go break kneecaps or something like that. But it's almost xenophobic because most of the scammers are immigrants, and so it's kind of like xenophobic because who is that? Who did that?
That's your phone. I don't know. That's you coming through my phone for some reason.
Well, you see, jokingly, it seems mostly that scammers can be non-citizens. Does that seem like the case where you're from?
So Spokane, Washington is a very homogenous city. When I say homogenous, I think you know what I mean. It's just the demographic.
A lot of white people.
It's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And there's certain behaviors and attitudes in our industry that are just not prevalent because of the homogenization of our city. Like, you don't see ethnic locksmiths up here. It's just not a thing. So call centers and immigrant locksmiths don't really, flock towards that. But you have major cities where that's pretty common, and it happens. There's also, without giving away too much, there are specific scammers that I've had a lot of bad blood with because I've been reporting them, either to Google, to the state. And I come to find out that the most prevalent one that I've had a almost decade-long feud with is a member of Aloha. This guy's been in the news for scamming people. He's had his license suspended 5 times in the state he's from. His contractors are constantly, getting pulled in.
You said that one of the most prevalent scammers in your area is a member of Aloha?
The only scammer in my area who's not from my area. It's from an out-of-state call center in a state that neighbors me. It's definitely not Idaho.
Have you reported him to Aloha?
I have reported to Aloha, but there's a process, and I understand it's happening. But I know there should be some form of background check whether it's just, yes, he has a formal license. Yes, he has a formal business. But if you do any if you dig any deeper than that, you find a lot. It's like a 1 inch of dirt and then 2 miles of garbage underneath it.
Hmm.
But
Speaking of which, I purchased a key machine from a locksmith who was forced to close down in Minnesota because he was violent, aggressive, and just a terrible person. And that actually seems like, I don't know if he was forced to based because he got criminal charges pressed against him, or if enough complaints compiled up to where it tipped the scales. And, the government actually did something to protect the citizens. But, the question begs, like, what are the options of Aloha if there is an option to punish a scammer?
Any organization, whether it's Sopal, Aloha, that's the thing. There's no magic wand to fix the problem.
You can never blacklist them from buying equipment because you can buy equipment almost anywhere. So
here's a great example. So Kimi was at Aloha's, I think, 2021 show, no, 2020 show. Was it 2020? Either way, Kimi was at one of their conventions, and I threw a fit about this because Kimi is not a locksmith. It does not have anything to do with locksmith. It doesn't have our best interests. They have, if you go to Seattle, they have, I think, it was over 100 Google Maps listings, over 100 listings for one business where not a single person actually is at. And Google has very specific policies that if you are a location-based business, if you have an actual address, if you have a physical address for a business, someone has to be able to go to that location and talk to someone in person. There should be a human there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they don't. And in over 100 spaces in one city. And that's, probably more for like New York and San Francisco or wherever else. I went undercover and did a little bit of work with Kimi for, I think it was like 6 months. I did like 5 jobs for them. And it was the most shit show, horrible setup I've ever seen before. It was pretty much like working for a roadside company. They would be like, hey, this turnkey ignition, you'll get paid $85 to make. I said, what does turnkey mean? Just make a metal key? Does that mean make a transponder? Who pays for the transponder? What's the quality rating? Is there a specific criteria? Like, we don't know. Make the key and fill up the app when you're done. Okay, well, what do you want me to make? If it's a prox, how do we do that? So pretty much I was going out I did a couple cars where like, hey, you have a 2007 Ford, F-150. Here's your H75 key. It turns the ignition. I'm done. Well, what about my remote? What remote? Oh, I had a remote. I told them I was going to get a remote. They said I get a remote. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, yep. This key doesn't start my car. No, it's a key that turns the ignition. That's physically, well, I paid them $400. Like, well, they only paid me like $75, $85. So I don't have to tell you. You should probably call a locksmith. Here's my card. I already got your key code now.
Then turn your head around.
Right.
I'm no longer
happened a few times, but basically no one there was an actual locksmith. It was a call center, people working from home, and it was, hey, this person's locked out of their 87 Suburban. How quickly can you get there? Oh, I'm across town working with another customer. I can be there in about an hour. Can you do it in 30 minutes? Well, what's the payout? $65. I'm like, you want me to drop what I'm doing with a real customer, drive across town to haul ass so you guys can make money off of me while I give this guy a discount compared to our normal rates. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Lock rekeys. You got to go rekey a lock. Well, this deadbolt's completely broken. My neighbor smashed it with a baseball bat. I'm going to rekey this broken lock and hand it to you, and then I'm going to leave because that's what I'm paid to do. And their tech support was like, if you call in, hey, I have a question or issue with a job you guys sent me. You got hung up on. You're put on hold for 20 minutes, and then it was a shit show. So I made a grievance against them with Aloha, and I said, they should not be here. And so they were removed from the conventions, but they're still listed in the magazine keynotes as a supplier or something like that. And I think their CEOs are still members of the organization too.
That's gay.
Kind of.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. So the biggest complaint I had about Kimi was that they have the locations everywhere that show up as locksmith. And then my customers would call Kimi And Kimi would say, yeah, we have a locksmith in the area that can make a key to your car. It's going to be $450 for one key. And the customer would be like, okay. And they would wait like a week and a half and nobody would ever show.
Mhm.
And what they would do is Kimi was trying to contract locksmiths out of Kansas City, Missouri, which is 2 hours away. And, depend on that kind of service, Russians essentially.
Mhm.
But they'd never show. And then they'd call me. I'd answer the first time they called. I'd give them a quote that was lower, and I would show up and make the key in minutes. And they would say, like, oh, my God, we should have called you to begin with. Like, we waited a week. I'm like, why'd you call then? And they're like, because they were first on Google, and stuff like that. But my biggest complaint is that Kimi.
Before you get that far, you know that the biggest investor, I believe one of the major investors of Kimi is an ex-Google executive, right? Did you know this? Something to think about.
Well, it makes sense whenever you think about how smart their business plan is. So what they do is they recruit bona fide locksmiths, the ones that they're directly competing against. And because they're able to inundate the marketplace better, like blanket ads, they pull more clicks and calls. And so they try to negotiate a rate with people like Chris or me, bona fide guys, and they'll try to get you to tentatively agree to something, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest problem there is that guys do it; they agree, like you did, or I did.
Well, they cold called me, and I said, you know what? I want to know what this is about. I'm going to record, document everything.
Nonetheless,
yeah.
nonetheless, like you understand, like you participated and others will too. So it's a direct confliction with your business plan in more than one way, but it's also very genius on their part because they know how to manipulate, because it's a dog-eat-dog world and we often consume our own. So
they're really
that's one of the biggest problems.
The jobs, and they always take the money up front. You don't forget. They always charge at a time. Oh, you're locked out of your car? Pay us. We'll get someone out there ASAP. They can have no one in that city yet. Oh, we got another part to speak of. Yet they'll take the money and the call and they'll start calling around. Hey, they'll make $150 on a lockout, and then they'll try and resell it for 75, 80, 60, whatever to the local guy. And they think, hey, this is a good deal. It's no different than what a lot of other scam call centers have done. These ones are just more honest about it. But two things. Right around 2020, they changed their NACS code, which is what the certification for an industry professional is. So if you make bread, your NACS code is under bakery. If you're a locksmith, your NACS code is locksmith. They changed from a key duplication service to a locksmith around 2020 because they had the machines already. Then they want to start using and implementing for maps. And then they say, hey, we got the key machines, we got the maps listings. Let's start selling these, for locksmith services. And that's what they did. But here's where it gets really interesting. Now, everyone out there in TV land, take note, because this is crazy. Every city that Kimi operates, let's rephrase that. Every city that Kimi operates in, they answer the phone the same way. They say, hey, thank you for calling Kimi. It's like the nation's most trusted locksmith, some crap like that. If you called in Seattle, I checked this in Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, and I think Salt Lake. So major metro areas. When I call and I say, hey, I need a key made for, I just pick a normal easy car. I need a 2007 Nissan, something simple, right? Nothing crazy. I'm not like, I need a Jaguar or a Porsche, like a simple car. They say, oh, you know what? We'll have to connect you with one of our trusted partners. You can select, if you're locked out, press 1. If you need a key made, press 2. And then you press 2 and you say, okay, what's your zip code? You punch your zip code and they say, oh, sorry, we don't have anyone in this area. They can service you. We will connect you with our trusted partner. And guess who their trusted partner is? Anyone.
Who?
What are you, fucking Al?
Any number they can find on Google.
Todd Schreiber.
They say, Locksmith.
Scammer, right?
24-hour call center, 24/7 locksmith. There's 15 different numbers that link off the one website. It is a horrible, horrible weave. So why is this Locksmith Directory? That's what I think it was. Was it Locksmith Directory? I may be misspeaking there, but it's a really large, prevalent scam call center. And I asked the director of business operations, because I pretty much kept jumping up the ropes. And I said, I need information about transponder equipment. I need information about this, because this person who onboarded me, no, I mean, if I could have asked them what's the difference between like a key and a lock, they would have been like, I don't know. So I kept working my way up the pyramid until I got to the operations of business, the director of business development and operations, and Brian something. And I said, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, you guys offer me a price to do something, but no one's clear about what my expectations are. If I'm rekeying a lock, how many locks am I giving them? If I'm making a key, do I have a responsibility to make multiples? Like, if you have a Ford system for all keys lost, am I giving them 2 keys? Because that's what's going to have to go down to. Are they being charged for 2 keys? Like, what's the system? What's the setup? I don't know. And I finally asked them, what's going on with these fucking scam call centers being routed off your guys' numbers? I'll look into it. That's weird. Never heard from him ever again, obviously, because I was like, fuck this place. So why, and this was for an area that covered millions of people, why is KeyMe sending their calls to scam call centers?
I think it's all flawed, really. Like Google verification, like that whole green check system, one of the main features of that was to like record calls between the customer and the locksmith for quality control to assure that the quote given was the price charged, right?
30
and
seconds.
So,
there it is. 30
yeah.
seconds.
And what they do, I actually tested this myself, was whenever I'd hit St. Louis, everybody's like green check mark. I would call them and it would ring and someone would go locksmith and I would say, hey, and they'd hang up. And that would kill the recording. They had my number and they'd call me back. And so that was a workaround for that solution that Google, offered, and it was their customer assurance and all that BS. And it's nothing but an illusion.
Because if cost per click obviously varies by city, your bid strategy, there's 1,000 variables. But with Google local service, it's a fixed price. So there are some cities that charge, like Baltimore. I'm sure fucking Florida's full of them. But I know there's cities like Portland has like, if you go to Portland, and I'll get to you in a reason why it's mostly in Portland, but there's like 50 people on Google local services. Then there's like 10 people on ads, and there's 1,000 fake, maps listings, and then there's organic. If you call for locksmith in Portland, you have like a 98% chance of getting fucking scammed. 30 seconds. You have to end that call within 30 seconds and you will not be charged, because the fixed rates can be anywhere between, in my area where it's cheap, $12 a call, regardless if they say, what time is it? What are you doing? Are you having lunch today? They don't give a fuck. They'll still charge you for it. Or you go to a big city, it's $45, $65 per call just to talk to someone. You don't even fucking have to make a connection with them or sell them a product. So that is the thing. Less than 30 seconds on Google local services, you don't pay a dime for that call. So what you're saying about them answering and hanging up immediately makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And it's scary because Google will say, we're just a publisher of information. We can't be, held valid for what's going on out there. But then the other part of it is, we'll do better. You should be going for low-hanging fruit, like lockouts and car keys and stuff like that. Well, scammers figured out a long time ago there's a shit ton of money in car keys because they can literally just pay for codes. They're all just, codesmithing it. You do get the occasional one that knows what they're doing, but
and then it's
a fucking disgrace.
All I do are cars. I don't do anything else but automotive. So that can be detrimental to me.
If you talk to the old timers, if you go and speak to one of the old timers and say, you know what, scammers this, scammer this, they'll say, well, you should be not worrying about the people calling for emergency service. Like, everything should be institutional or federal work or something. It's like, well, no, we gotta wait for you fuckers to die before we can start getting those accounts again. It's in a sense, it's kind of sad because we're stuck between old people that don't understand how things are going because they're client base has been so largely sourced from decades of working with them. And then we have the scammers that are just grabbing everything else underneath that. And we're kind of stuck in the middle. Like, do we just get more people and help us out? Do we start trying to send to get bigger accounts? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love repeat customers. I love accounts, but at the same time is you can't turn down a $150 lockout because, you know, it's above you. No, of course it's not. We all got fucking bills to pay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Real quick, can you guys hear me? Because I just plugged in my charger.
Yeah, you're good.
I just want to make sure that for whatever reason it's not affecting anything. Speaking to the cost, like of we're like just like the correlation of like old versus new, and how like one field is secure, or it was back then, right? Like facility maintenance is secured by the old guy, right? Because he's had that account for like 30 years, he's had his prices, and he's probably negotiated throughout time, and perhaps that account equals like, you know, 30% of his gross income, right? The new locksmith, like the programmers and equipment, is significantly cheaper than what it used to be. Like, whereas that man's machine was like, in his, you know, time, you know, quarterly speaking, it was like $2,000. Now we can buy a $2,000 robot that'll cut almost every key possible, whereas his would only cut edge cut or certain keys. So there's a big difference now in regards to how one can claim money, or who can claim money. Those who don't even invest that much are contenders in the arena now. Whereas that man back then had all the equipment already paid for, and so that's why he was secure in his little bubble.
Well, look at also the divide right now, because if you are fully into automotive, you're probably not going to be fully in commercial. If you're fully in commercial, you're probably not going to be fully into automotive. So if I know there's a lot of locksmiths that say we don't do automotive, we only do commercial, and vice versa. Like, oh, we do fucking 20 car keys a day. Why the fuck we want to go put a panic bar on a door? It doesn't make any sense. So the tools and the knowledge and experience and education and all that gap's getting bigger. It used to be, if you make a car key, it's cool. You can impression it. You can impression a fucking lock cylinder on a car, you're fine up until about, you know, the time the VATs started coming around. Then you had to understand the more electronics. You had to do this. You had to do that. Same for access control and commercial. That whole branch is getting bigger. So it used to be, we have this small little narrow amount of I won't say narrow, but this smaller amount of education needed to be a locksmith. Now it's, you have this massive piece for commercial, this massive piece for automotive. You want to do institutional work. You want to do, so I don't see that going away. I don't see us saying, hey, it's going to get easier to do automotive. It's going to get easier to do access control. I guarantee you locksmith in the 1950s never need to have a low voltage license. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, my phone is at 5%. It's not charging. We're at 2 hours and 7 minutes here at our podcast time. I feel like we should probably conclude. I feel like this was a really good podcast. Overall, we have classes coming up in June. Like next week, the 21st. I lost my paper, my cheat sheet. So let me look at it. We got June 21st and the 22nd is beginner's auto. And then the 23rd on Friday is Mercedes. And then we have Aloha coming up in August. We will be there at Aloha attending a booth, no classes, but we will be there. Chris will not be. But Chris will be at the TLA, which is what I'm looking forward to the most, to be completely honest with you. The TLA is scheduled to be Wednesday, October 25th through the 28th, which is Saturday. Mm-hmm. But there is the possibility that they will open it up an extra day or two to accommodate the legend, David McOmi. So,
TLA has a Facebook page. They have a website. If you need to check their Facebook, it seems they're pretty active on that for information releases right now. If you are not a member of the TLA, I'm not sure what their registration, because for us, at least for me, I had to become a member. It made more sense to do it that way. So definitely make sure you check for information, and classes will probably fill up pretty quick once they're announced, it looks like. So get on top of it, boys and girls.
Yeah, and I would say as soon as the schedule drops and that enrollment begins, you best get up on that schedule, because I know at least 10 people who are waiting aggressively for this to happen. So
it's probably going to be the last convention of the year. We're going into winter for most of us, or at least the late fall. So get your tax write-offs while you still can get them, boys.
Yes. I mean, this is going to be a hell of a show, potentially one of the best that I will probably attend in my life. Every TLA has exceeded my expectations, even whenever it was at the Radisson. Emphasis on rat.
Oh my God.
So the TLA is always a good time. There's always good people, good food, good music, good environment, and just good
And
vibes.
don't forget the lock picking competition. There'll be some gold up for grabs. So, bring your game.
You can try to beat me. Anybody in Texas. I challenge everybody in Texas. Why is there no Texas champion? Perhaps you can change that. Dethrone me. Come and take my belt if
Prima
you
nocta.
can.
Yeah. Well, prima nocta.
I don't think anybody's going to take it. I might have to keep my own belt. We'll see. Well, ladies and gentlemen, great podcast. Eric is going to pull the plug here in about 10 seconds. I thank you, anybody who has joined us. This is our first one. We plan to do several. There's no schedule yet, and it's only going to get better. Jareth Garza, Paul Van Neville, Eric Duckweiler with the Locksmith Academy, and Chris Hofstetler with Lockjaw. Thank you.
All right, guys.